A podcast. What is the word?
A podcast by Kalugo.
A podcast. No. By Galuga.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Christy, and this is Today We Tried, a parenting podcast brought to you by Kalugo. And this week's interview is one to listen to and then bookmark to listen to again whenever you need a reminder that you're not alone if you're feeling overwhelmed by parenthood today. I'm joined by Blessing Adesiyan, founder of MotherHonestly, a platform that propels women forward in motherhood, work, and life. We've known each other for years, we're both moms of 4, and we get real about the challenges facing modern parents, why and how employers need to step it up, and how to get better equality at home with your partner. You'll also notice we talk about the high price of summer camp. We did record our conversation last summer and that was top of mind, but our conversation is only more relevant now as prices continue to rise and we are still living in a childcare crunch. Super excited about this one. Let's jump in and get started. So Blessing, I'm so thrilled to be with you today. How are you? How are things today, this week?
Things are going well.
Blessing, I have to read. I was going back through your Instagram and I just want to read. This is maybe from like 6 months ago. So I'm sure all these numbers are even higher now, but it says in the last 4 years, I've been pregnant 3 times, had 3 C-sections, breastfed 3 babies for 3 years, completed a top MBA, 2x'd my income, built a community that reaches 300K plus, generated 300K plus in revenue, bought and sold 2 houses, net $1 million plus, moved my family across continents. So, I mean, Blessing.
When I put it down on paper, because I think as women, right, we're always on the go. There's always something, and we don't take a lot of time to pause and really put together our accomplishments and remind ourselves how powerful we were. So I actually put that together on a day that I felt so sad for whatever reason, right? Like I just woke up very sad. I felt like I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't moving fast enough on some of my plans for MotherHonestly. And my daughter was the one who was like, "You've done a lot." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, I have done a lot." And so I sat down and just started writing. I had a full-time job. I had a side hustle, which is now, which is MotherHonestly at the time. And on the side, we generated $300,000.
Yeah, that's right? So important. And I will say, Blessing, like I will feel like I'm not doing enough or feel kind of overwhelmed. And I'm like, well, I have 4 kids. So like, it makes sense. And then I'm like, well, Blessing also has 4 kids and she is crushing it. So super inspiring to watch all that you're doing and the way that MotherHonestly has grown. And now you are at MotherHonestly full time, right?
Yes. So I now run MotherHonestly full time, which is exciting, but at the same time, it's scary, right? Because you're like, oh my God, I got to make payroll, not just for myself now, but for a team. And that is always scary for us because up until now, I mean, we haven't fundraised or anything. So this is still very much bootstrapped. And so it's scary for a mother of 4, right? Because we got to feed this kid. It's really helped, right? Now that I'm on MotherHonestly full time, it has really helped me to hone in on the kind of people that we want to work with, the kind of partners we want to work with. We now have a rule where we don't do any free work, right? There's no more unpaid work.
Well, and you talk a lot about the unpaid labor that women are doing. And I think both at home and in corporate life. So even, you're employed, you're doing your job, but women take on additional responsibilities unpaid in the workforce too. And I think the 4th trimester is really a time when women can wrap their worth in their productivity, right? So it's like, they need to be responsible for everything, taking on everything at the home. And you wrote an article in Forbes about this productivity lie and its effect on women. And I would love to talk through that a little bit more because you talk about kind of what it laid bare for you in comparing what your mom did when you were growing up in Nigeria versus what women are expected to do in the US.
Yeah, I mean, so when it comes to unpaid work, I think the biggest lie that we've told women is that women are responsible for how the home operates, right? It almost seems like if you're not doing the laundry, cooking, cleaning, and really supporting your family at home, that somehow you're a bad mom, right? Because growing up, women were conditioned, or girls were conditioned to doing the chores at home, and boys were conditioned to be providers and, make the money and bring it back home. Even up until now, we've seen that a lot of men, rely on women, right, to run the household. It's almost like a given that when she get married, my wife is going to take care of me and take care of the kids. And so we now live in a society where women are shouldering a lot of this unpaid work. And at the same time, there's now this expectation that women will also do paid work, because it's not enough to rely on one person's income. We now have to rely on two persons' income. And so as a result, women are now shouldering a significant amount of unpaid work and also a significant amount of paid work, right? Because if you look at the numbers, 70% of women are either breadwinners or co-breadwinners. Actually, 40% are breadwinners, right? Which means there's 40% of us that is doing more on the work front and also doing more on the home front. Because there's another data that shows that when women actually make more money, the amount of hours they spend doing household chores significantly increases. And I don't know why. Maybe some of our girlfriends out there are wanting to do more work to prove that, whoa, just because I'm making more money doesn't mean that I can't do this as well. Like, I can do it all. And so what I've started telling women is we need to realize the impact of unpaid work on our well-being. We need to realize the impact of unpaid work on our mental health and our emotional health and how we show up for ourselves. Because we're starting to see that these work, paid and unpaid, is affecting women's mental health. It's affecting women's health in general. A lot of women are burning out. A lot of women are ending up, popping pills left, right, and center because they are exhausted. They can't get it together. Everything is falling on their shoulders. And when we talk about productivity, we can see that productivity was defined in the lens of a man. It's the ability to focus, the ability to get work done uninterrupted, distraction-free work. Well, how many women do you know that work undistracted? And so we are living in this lie. And there's also this expectation that women shouldn't accept help, right? That if you're a mom, you pretty much need to be doing this by yourself, because how else would you say or prove that you're a mom? And so there's just a lot of things that I think as a society, we need to unpack and give women the permission to, first of all, accept help, give women the permission to get rid of unpaid work, which means men are also doing their own fair share of work. Employers are supporting women and men, and society is providing the policies and the resources to support families, working families, so that we can actually all work.
Yeah. And I think now 2+ years ago when COVID hit, there was all of a sudden this, this recognition. I think people saw what women were doing and mothers were doing in a way that it became visible, a lot of this invisible work, because the line between home and work, we're working from home, our kids are behind us or in our laps during our calls. Like, there was no way to have that facade of a divide. We're talking about it more, but we don't have the policies in place. We don't have the supports in place. Like, we're now dealing with childcare crisis. There aren't enough caregivers. Camps are like impossible to get into around me. Like, the amount of supports aren't there. Like, what are you seeing from the employer side? Are there policies that they're putting into place that are actually making a difference here for women?
I think a lot of companies are looking to support families. I absolutely think they are, but I don't think they know how. And they don't know how because a lot of companies still don't understand the extent to which caregiving responsibilities affect work, right? Because think about it. If you're an employer, you're kind of like, what, does this really affect me? Because if it doesn't affect me, I really don't care. This is then a personal issue. But what we've seen is that caregiving responsibilities actually affect work. It affects productivity. It affects, the ability for that employee to be present, right? It's not just about, oh, wow, I'm not going to go to work, right? It is, I am actually at work, but there's so many things that are competing for my attention. And so that's why we see presenteeism, right, being an issue even for employers. So I think a lot of employers are wanting to support working families, but they don't know where to start. And because they don't know where to start, a lot of them decide to do nothing. That is now embedded in the way corporate America, doles out benefits. But one of the things that we are talking to employers, because we now work with a lot of employers, and we say, no matter how little, you need to be able to demonstrate to your employees that you care. And so what then does it mean to be a caring company? A caring company is a company that provides childcare, elder care, pet care, no matter how small. It could be that, whoa, I can only afford $1,000 a year to subsidize your cost of care. Because when we look at care, childcare, for example, since the pandemic, the cost has gone up 41%. And we now have more people in the sandwich generation than ever before, where a mom or a dad or anyone is not only taking care of their kids, but they are also taking care of their elderly parents. And so companies that are going to compete in this particular era are going to have to provide care. They will have to provide subsidized care to support their employees.
Pre-COVID, we had reliable, as a family, a full-time nanny, reliable care, and going through almost 2 years without having that, where it was Ted and I just kind of like passing kids back and forth. And now we have an amazing nanny again. And the difference that makes, I kind of had like forgotten what it meant to have uninterrupted work time and like the amount of focus and what you can accomplish. I feel like so much of the time you hear employees giving like, oh, we'll have a parent support group and we'll have like webinars on helpful things or like X, Y, or Z. It's like, no, what parents really need is money in their pockets to pay for childcare so that they're able to, focus on their work and be doing the work that we want to be doing. We need the money. I mean, cost of everything is going up so quickly right now.
Going up. One of the things that I'm telling employers when we work with them now is you're wasting money. You're wasting money on a lot of this employee assistance program. It doesn't make any sense. Only 5.5% of employees are utilizing their employee assistance program benefits. So companies are throwing money out of the window, begging employees to come to this webinar or to, just utilize this, this new product that is only available to those in New York, because you can't find those caregivers, for example, in Montana or in North Dakota or in the suburbs. So what we're saying is, how can you actually subsidize this care, right? Can you just put the money in the hands of the people that actually need it? And, the question that comes back to me, Christy, is, oh my goodness, Blessing, but, we don't want to just do this for moms. I said, then do it for everyone, because everyone cares for someone. Even if it's a single person, he or she has a parent that they care for. It could even be their partner that is sick, that they need to subsidize that cost of care. It could even be their office. A lot of people are now working from home. How are they supposed to clean their office? How are they supposed to make up for the free lunch that you normally give them? Maybe that's where their money goes to. Maybe their money goes to subsidizing their lunch, their co-working space, whatever that is. But me as a mother, that money would go towards subsidizing my costs of care.
I think this is something people miss with policies that are framed as supporting parents. And then people are like, oh, but I don't want to just support the moms. But really what we're doing is recognizing employees are full people with full lives, that everyone has something going on, like you're saying, and employers need to recognize and support that to have engaged. So I really see these, maybe parents are like the entryway into it, but the broader conversation is we're all people who need support in different ways and should be empowered to like use that money as we need to.
Absolutely. And I love what you just said. Parents is the entryway, because the reality is that there's a lot of assumptions that we make in corporate America or anywhere else, in any company or by anyone, which is that everybody is healthy and amazing. For example, I could be a single person, but I could be married to a disabled man. Like, how is that going to be accounted for? Or I could even myself be a disabled person working in corporate America. How is my care going to be accounted for? So I think that a lot of time we are looking at, we're looking at this as a one size fit all solution. And even when let me come back to being a working parent, what we are fighting for at that point is equality, because equality is we want to do it for everybody. But equity is we are going to meet people where they are. So if you're a parent, I'm going to meet you where you are. If you are a single person, I'm going to meet you where you are, which is why, at MotherHonestly, with some of the features that we're rolling out is how do we get employers to actually fund an employee's care responsibilities? Because that to me is how we get through this. And if we look at the rising cost of everything, inflation, everything is expensive. Childcare is expensive. I mean, I don't know how people are doing summer camp right now. Like, I don't know. I'm hearing from a lot of our moms that the kids are home. It's back to sort of COVID period again because they can't afford summer camp. And even when they can afford summer camp, the hours don't make sense. It's like, come from 9 to 1 o'clock. It's like, who is going to be going around in circles for this?
It's truly, that is my camp next week. So my 3-year-old is doing like 2 weeks of camp because I signed up my 6-year-olds for camp and I was like, oh, well, that's the budget. So my 3-year-old's going to be home with our 1-year-old all summer. But next week I have camp for all 3 of them, but it's only from 9 to 12. So I have to get them out to camp. I have, 2.5 hours, have to pick them up again. And that's the camp for the week. So yeah,
now you see the absurdity of everything. Yeah. Like, this is why women can't work, right? And I know that you and Ted, you guys are amazing, right? Like, both of you handle these things, in a way that makes sense. But at least from what I see, is more hands-on than a lot of men. But
absolutely.
Still, we know that disproportionately this falls on women. And so summertime is when women are probably unproductive the most, right? Because we gotta do this back and forth. In the middle of this back and forth, you lose focus. You then don't catch up with the things that you need to catch up on. And that continues to affect how you show up for yourself and how you show up for your employer. We got to find a solution.
Yeah. Oh, and it worked. I'm extremely lucky. My husband and I, Ted and I are, running Kalugo together, running our family together, and we're both all in on both. And so we're able to, switch back and forth, look at our calendars together at the beginning of the week, like who can do this, who can do that. But we have the flexibility, which is very rare. And Ted is very involved and we're like very committed to kind of dividing things equally. I feel like it's the same from what I see with you and your husband, and you talk about the importance of having those conversations and kind of laying everything out. So are there things that have worked particularly well with you and your family to try to divide up the work of running the house?
We didn't start out this way, right? I married a traditional man who was expecting maybe his wife is going to cook and clean and have dinner ready and all those things. Even before we got married, we had the conversation and I told him, I'm a career woman. And so that expectation is just not going to fly with me. But here's what's going to fly with me. What's going to fly with me is you, at the minimum, being responsible for your own thing, right? Like your own laundry, do it. Your own food, do it. Don't rely on me because you were doing this on your own before you met me. So there's no reason why I should be picking up your laundry or serving you dinner. So we got it out of the way very quickly. And then we said, okay, with the kids, we would then, divvy up as best as we can. And I think that coming in with that expectation has really helped because he does his own laundry. I don't care. He does everything that he needs to, to get through life, dinner and things like that. We actually outsource cooking because as much as I love to cook, I don't have time to cook during the week. So Monday through Friday, we outsource cooking. And on weekends, I pick up cooking because I actually do love to cook. So that is how we work within our household. How about you guys?
We live and die by our Google Calendar. So every week it's like, okay, let's really block everything on here of what we need to do. And we have check-ins that are like personal check-ins and work check-ins. So we have that like labeled time on the calendar because if we don't put it on our calendar, it just will not happen. Ted and I also divide up like what tasks around the house do I enjoy doing or it doesn't bother me and what do I hate? And we kind of divide what we like. Like Ted he cooks dinner every night for the family. He cleans up the kitchen at the end of the night and like sweeps up. I do more of the like social planning for our family. He makes all of the doctor's appointments. So we've kind of divided things up and then let that be the other person's responsibility, which means he and I both have to let go of it being done like exactly how we would do it. It's just, you got to give it up and trust your partner to get it done. And it changes back and forth. Like you said, sometimes one of us needs to have more focused days at work. Sometimes, so I would do all of the pickups or all of the drop-offs. And sometimes we divide it up because it's just very fluid. We're very much like work-life integrated because we're both at Colugo and we're both running the house. So that makes it a lot easier on our end. But yeah, when we went to marriage counseling before we got married, like the priest who married us, we had some sessions with him and he was like, one thing you just have to think about, it seems like you both are really committed to rigid equality here. He was like, that's good, but also sometimes it's going to have to be like off balance here. And you got to like recognize that too. So we're like, okay, sometimes one person or another is going to have to take on more and you have to like know that's a season and you'll get through it. And I think that's really true when we've gone through the 4th trimester together, having babies. I'm breastfeeding, I'm recovering from giving birth. Like you, Blessing, had C-section. So I'm sure that's a different level of recovery. You're breastfeeding, you're running the business. Like at a certain point, you're going to probably be doing more with a newborn baby than your husband, but then he can take on other things around the house to kind of manage through that time.
I always just joke, Christy, thank God I have 4 kids. So when I'm with the baby, he is with the 2 toddlers and they are figuring out bathtime. And here's a quick story. So when we had the 4th one and got back home, I remember my husband, now we're home, and I used to be the one doing bathtime. So I said, I can't do bathtime anymore. So figure it out. Since I'm recovering from a C-section, I can't bend anyways, right? So let that go. We had a few people, we'd already made dinner and lunches, ahead of time. So we had food. And so I would just rest and just sit down. But I noticed during that time that my husband would leave, we'll be having a conversation, right? Just, of course, like running after the kids and just, chit-chatting. And 30 minutes before bedtime, he would go up and clean out the bathtub, lay down the bath mat, and he would have all of the, the toys, the kids, bath toys and everything. And he's a germaphobe. So he would wash everything out and come take one kid at a time, right? And he takes his time, like he gets under their nails and like the ears. And if it was me, I'd just like, you're out.
I know, that's how I am too.
That's how I operate. But what I realized during that was just how meticulous he was. And, he would go, online and order like things to make the bath experience a little bit more exciting. They had music up there. Like the kids now started looking forward to bath time. Before I would literally be chasing them around, come go take a bath. And no one is listening to me. And he would say, bath time, and they're like running upstairs. So what I realized was, we've really been sold this lie, right? That men aren't cut out for these things. That, they can't cook, they can't clean, they can't do this bath time, they can't do laundry well. And, and that we need to just keep lowering our standards, right? As women, like, let him just do it whatever way he wants, without realizing that, yes, there's some areas where he has good strengths and I have good, I'm more capable. But what I'm trying to say is that we are not giving men enough credit. And because we're not giving men enough credit, we are not giving them the opportunity to prove themselves as the parent that they were meant to be. And for me, that taught me a lesson when I realized how amazing my husband was with bath time, how amazing we found out that my husband is actually a better cook than I am. He is more organized than I am. He's more thorough than I am when it comes to cleaning. And so I just realized that, this doesn't make any sense, right? Like none of this makes any sense because we have not allowed ourselves to, even women, right? When we're raising our boys, a lot of time you're kind of like, oh, it's okay. Like he's a boy, he just wants to play. And we don't offer the same, we don't give girls the same opportunities to say, oh yeah, she's a girl, she just wants to play, right? Like she doesn't need to cook or clean, she doesn't need to help out. All of this to say that men are capable. So if you're listening to this podcast and you think that your partner or your spouse is not capable, that is not true. We just need to find what they're capable of, Like we need to find what they're capable of and let them do that.
Yeah, like take out gender, like think about all the things that need to get done in your house with your kids. It can be really helpful to like write that all out and just divide it up and let it go and see. I think that's such a good point also about, I'm very much like you with bath time. Like I just want to get through it, get them clean enough, get them in their pajamas into bed. But your husband finds joy in that. Like there are other places where it just makes sense to divide things up. I'm surprised to hear he's a better cook than you, though. I've seen on your Instagram your beautiful cooking. It all looks amazing.
I was very surprised. And he doesn't love to cook, right? So he knows how to cook, but he doesn't love to cook. And thank God, you know, he was raised by a mother who just believed that there was no differences in gender. And that really helped him growing up. And when we found out that he was a better cook the day he finally cooked, I was just like, whoa. But you know, what I love about him in particular is the fact that he doesn't have that expectation that you need to cook for me.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no food in the house, he fixes something for himself and that's it. There's no, where is my food? Like that is never a conversation in my house. So I think that even as we raise children, to raise them from a place that is not coming from a place of privilege. Because a lot of time, you know, your kid will even just say, where's my food, right? It's okay for them to say that when you're young, but as people grow up, it needs to be that everyone is self-sufficient so that we don't raise men or women that think they can rely on other people to survive, because that's just not going to happen.
And I think it's a really good place to start. Like where we started our discussion, where women are so ingrained to not ask for help and to feel like you have to do everything. Consider it the lesson you're teaching your children. Ask for them to be helpers. Kids love to be helpers. And sometimes it slows you down because they're young and it's going to make it a challenge, but like it is worth it there to start practicing asking for help, bringing other people in your family into it. I mean, and kids pretty soon could be pretty self-sufficient. Like they can get their own water, they can get their own snacks. You can set up your life so they're empowered to help themselves a lot more, kind of looking. And I think if you are a person kind of preparing for the fourth trimester, going into the fourth trimester with older kids, you are going to be, you know, recovering from giving birth. You're going to need to be a little more stationary. Set up it so your older kids can get their own snacks, get their own water, have little playstations for them set up. And that will make your life a lot easier too. Also, they will probably love to go help you, like grab a diaper, grab a burp cloth, bring them into that from the start. I want to talk more about MotherHonestly. And I think this can be, I don't know, I imagine myself as a first-time mom, like 6 years ago, if I was preparing to be a first-time mom right now, things feel pretty dire. We've talked about the childcare crisis, costs are rising, women are leaving the workforce. It feels a little scary right now. There isn't paid leave. Obviously, MotherHonestly, just as a community, anyone listening should follow, because you all are talking about what is top of mind for moms right now and offering that community and commiseration. But can we talk a little more about the tools that you offer and the community kind of beyond just even like the face of your Instagram that is such a resource?
Thank you. So MotherHonestly, we're doing a lot of great things. One of the biggest things that we do obviously is our events. So we have quarterly summits and we have workshops here and there. And I think that whoever is listening, you know, go on motherhonestly.com or just follow us on Instagram so you are a part of, you can actually see some of the events that we have coming up. So that's one. The other thing we offer is a membership. So the membership is very straightforward. It's $295 for the year. You can also have a quarterly option, if you will. I think that's $95. And there's a monthly option that we just introduced. And I think, you know, for us, the community is really where we get into the nitty-gritty details of how do we really support you as a mother. So we offer toolkits, everything we just talked about. How do you run a tight ship at home? So we have a household management toolkit for that. How do you outsource? You know, and what is the right thing to outsource, right? How do you take things off your plate? How do you find the right type of care for your child? A lot of people don't know if they should be going with a nanny, or if it's a childcare center, or if it's a babysitter, or if it's a combination of all of these three, or if there's a summer camp that, you know, that could be helpful. So we have a guide on exactly how to find the right type of care. And so these are just examples, right? We even have guidelines and toolkits around how do you land your dream job, right? Because a lot of us, our needs are changing. What is important to us is changing. So we have a lot of all these different toolkits and guides that people can actually use. Beyond that, we have a concierge service, 2 hours for all of our members every month. This allows our members to come to us with, whoa, I need research, I need help with finding a summer camp, or I need support with finding the right nanny, or somebody, recently said they needed support with looking for a makeup artist because they are rejuvenating their business website and they need support. So this is just an example of, how mothers are utilizing Mother Honestly, and then of course there's just multiple resources, hundreds of hours of videos in our resource library that allows people to really get the support that they need.
That's amazing. And I love your newsletters, emails that you send out as well, like just chock full of resources. It's really amazing community. So that's at Mother Honestly is the Instagram, and then motherhonestly.com, the website. You can kind of dive in there and get a fully fleshed out community. I mean, I love that you also are focused on like the home and work all integrated together, because if all those pieces aren't lined up, like you can't do the other.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not succeeding at home, the reality is there's no way you can succeed in the workplace. It's not, and this is why, when we started this podcast, we talked about, the reality, which is that employers don't understand the extent to which caregiving affects work. And I think that has been our focus, especially this year, is really to bring some more understanding to, or to shed more light on the reality of caregiving responsibilities, not just on women, but also on men and on anyone that has a caregiving responsibility.
I think we're just taught, especially as women. I mean, when I worked at a big law firm, it's like, you're not supposed to mention that, right? That you are a mom, that you're taking care of kids. You're supposed to come to work and pretend like none of that exists. And I feel like COVID broke that all down, right? But we need to like acknowledge that caregiving does have an impact, and then like find the solution so that you can thrive both at home and at work, instead of having the solution be like, oh, well, women can then leave the workforce then, because that's, where we're left. So I'm just so appreciate what you all are doing at Mother Honestly, and excited to continue to follow along. So, okay, we mentioned Mother Honestly on Instagram, web, and anywhere else that people should go to find you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. On our website, motherhonestly.com, and then on our Instagram, we are at Mother Honestly. We also on LinkedIn. So especially if you're a working professional, LinkedIn is more than likely a good place, because we share a lot of resources. You can also go to motherhonestly.com/toolkits to grab some of our toolkits for free. So a lot of the toolkits that I mentioned are actually free right now. So you definitely don't want to miss that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Blessing. It was so great to chat with you.
Thank you.
Today We Tried is brought to you by Colugo, a baby gear brand founded by parents for parents. I'm your host, Christy, and our producer is Mike Pilak. Stay tuned for more, and in the meantime, remember, you got this, and we've got you.